If you thought Fox Mulder and the Lone Gunman were filled with conspiracy theories, wait till you check out Utopia on Amazon Prime. This makes their stuff look downright normal. A group of strangers obsessed with a graphic novel believe it is filled with hidden messages about a shadowy organization, and by uncovering the clues, they can save the world. This is a dark and wild ride. About 5 minutes into the first episode, we are told the story of Dystopia, which turns out to be the prequel to Utopia. In Dystopia, it tells the story of a young woman, Jessica Hyde. Her dad was a genius scientist and being forced by Mr. Rabbit to create viruses. Somehow they're able to escape, and Mr. Rabbit sends his mercenaries, the Harvest, to go after them. Harvest captures Dad, and Jessica now has to try and save him. And that's just the beginning of the story. The graphic novel Dystopia is believed to have predicted all sorts of global viruses and diseases. So true believers think that Utopia is going to show them the answers and possibly the cures. I love the visual style of this show. At times it really does look like it's a graphic novel or a comic book. There's just this very drab and bleak look to a lot of what we see, and some things are like very run down or just dilapidated in a way that looks like they came straight out of the illustrated pages. But sometimes that's contrasted with a sterile and clean setting. It's that pristine part of the world, untouched by the grittiness and the grime of the comic. I said this is dark, and it really is. There's a certain Game of Thrones aspect to character arcs, and I really enjoyed it. I was almost instantly sucked into the story. I mean, yes, it is weird, but it's told really well. And I was shocked. A lot of the things I didn't see coming, nor did I expect. There were some predictable moments and also some predictable elements to the story, but it didn't ruin the enjoyment. The acting is what's really going to make or break this, because the story itself is weird. Now, it is engaging, but if we don't buy into the characters, then we're probably going to check out rather quickly. I mean, we don't have to necessarily like the characters, but we need to be drawn to them. And I was really drawn to a lot of them. I love that we have this ragtag group of misfits, and each of them brings a weirdness and a uniqueness to the story. A few of them are able to give us some subtle comedy, which makes this even more enjoyable. But I mean, don't get me wrong, the humor is still of a very dark nature. One character, Wilson Wilson, is a massive conspiracy nut. He lives an unconnected life, so he's basically untraceable. Nobody knows where he's at any given point or time. But I love that when he gets riled up about something, he becomes hilarious. I mean, I loved listening to his rants because he just would dial himself up and up and up, and it was like, I don't even know if you have an off switch now. Ian is another character, and he's kind of along for the ride, and his motivations might be a little less than pure. But even though he might be a little different from the group, he's still a lot of fun. Becky is extremely likable, and she's probably one of the more level-headed people in the group. But she is not one to trifle with when push comes to shove. There are two scientists played by Rainn Wilson and John Cusack, and they kill it in their roles. Each of them gets to shine in their own arc, and I love what they each brought to the story. Each of the characters has an earnestness to their beliefs. I mean, they really believe in what they're doing, so much so that they're almost zealots for it. But my favorite character in the show so far is Arby. He is quiet, but man with an intensity. His dedication to his craft is scary, but fun. And he's also a little funny. I mean, I'm not sure that they were actually going for funny, but his interactions and the way he delivers his lines and his mannerisms, body language, even facial expressions did make me chuckle. And he really grew on me as each episode progressed. And I also liked that we got to see some character growth out of him. The first half of the show is really surrounding the graphic novel. But as the show progresses, it does tend to lean away from that a little bit. I mean, it is still important, but the characters themselves become so much more important as the story goes along. We need that comic book and we need that setup to buy into everything that's going on and to have the impetus for what our characters are doing, but then they take over and they drive the story. So this is kind of an adaptation of a UK series that aired in 2013 and 14. Now, I haven't had that opportunity to see it, but I am curious about it. This version for Amazon was adapted and written for the screen by Gillian Flynn, which I'm sure that she helped to add some of the dark and twisted nature to this. She's the writer behind Gone Girl, Dark Places, and Sharp Objects. Each of those are pretty twisted, but they're also good. The story is pretty easy to follow despite there being a lot of twists and turns. and I really enjoyed how the conspiracy grew and how it continued to get darker and darker as the episodes progressed. I was a little shocked by the violence in this. I mean, it didn't bother me because a lot of it was stylistic, but I didn't expect it, and so it did catch me off guard. The first episode will really set the tone for everything that we continue to see, and it doesn't let up. I like that the show is chock full of social commentary. From government oversight to healthcare to overpopulation to even vaccinations. I'm not sure when this was actually filmed, but it feels like a lot of the story was written exactly for 2020. And yes, some of it might be a little far-fetched, but it also has its roots in reality, which I think makes it a little more scary and also that much more believable. I enjoyed the soundtrack too. They were a lot of fun and some were throwbacks to songs I hadn't heard in quite a while. I do think it was a little odd in this that one of the premises for the show is how overcrowded the world is. But yet when we see most streets or neighborhoods, they're empty. I mean, like no cars, no people, nothing. And so that didn't fit with the narrative that they were telling. And it kind of bothered me a tiny bit. Overall, though, this turned out to be a really enjoyable watch. It was exciting and mysterious and quite dark, but I loved the story. I became engrossed with the characters and even the mythology that they were building. It's 8 episodes long. Each of them are slightly under an hour, so it will take a little bit of time, but it's a lot of fun. I'm really curious to see where they're going to take another season. There's sex but no nudity, a lot of profanity, and a ton of bloody violence. I give season 1 of Utopia 4.5 out of 5 couches. What have you done today to earn your place in this crowded world? If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.